My own mother erased my name from her Mother's Day successful kids only dinner. So I erased my signature from the life she could not afford without me. The frozen food plant never really slept. Even at noon, it hummed like a tired animal, all steel breath and fluorescent glare. That afternoon, my break smelled like garlic powder and cold metal. I sat on an overturned crate behind the loading dock, steel-toe boots crossed, fingers numb from the freezer, scrolling my phone with a thumb that still ached from lifting boxes all night. Riverton, Ohio had a way of shrinking your world if you let it. I had stayed when my siblings left. I clocked in when the mortgage clocked louder after my dad died. Real work, unglamorous work, the kind that paid on time. My phone lit up. Family Haze group chat. For half a second, my chest tightened the way it always did. I imagined a simple line. Love you all. Even you, Sarah. The screen refreshed. It was a long message. Carefully worded. Polished. Mother's Day dinner tonight. Celebrating my successful kids only. Mark, Dr. Hayes, saving lives. Emma, our creative director, making the world beautiful. Lily, our future lawyer. Dinner at 6:30. So proud of you. 3 names. 3 glowing titles. No fourth. Reactions popped up fast. A flexed bicep. Sparkles and hearts. A crying happy face. Cannot wait, Mom. I stared at the empty space where my name should have been. Refreshed again. Nothing changed. The black part of the screen caught my reflection. Hair tucked under a factory cap. Hands stained from freezer burn. Eyes burning now for a different reason. My heartbeat thudded in my ears, heavy and slow, like the lines starting up after maintenance. This was not an oversight. This was an announcement. A memory flickered. A family barbecue, 2 summers ago. Relatives asking what I was doing with my life. My mother laughing, actually laughing, before saying I was just helping out at a local place for now. She could not bring herself to say factory. When I tried to explain the overtime, the bills, the way my shoulders screamed so the lights stayed on, she pulled me aside and hissed that my job was embarrassing. The phone buzzed again. A video call. My mother's smiling contact photo floated at the top like a mask. I watched it ring. I knew the script. If I picked up, I would be told I was sensitive. Dramatic. That she meant well. I let it die. A text followed. Hope you understand. Tonight is just about celebrating achievements. You are always part of the family. Always part of the family. Just not proud enough to be seen. I slid the phone into my pocket as the brake horn blared. Back on the line, my hands moved on muscle memory, while something inside me cracked, and something colder clicked into place. They had made my place clear. That night, at my small kitchen table, I opened a notebook and drew 2 columns. Stay connected. Cut ties. The right side filled faster. No more humiliation. No more waiting for invitations that never came. Peace. I scrolled back to the message, took a screenshot, and saved it in a locked album. A receipt. Then I opened the drawer beneath the table. Old papers. A promissory note my mother had signed when the house was slipping. Emails from the bank with my name under cosigner. I closed the drawer gently. They thought they had erased me. They forgot I was the one holding the pen. The next morning, my alarm went off at 4:30 a.m. The same shrill sound that had dragged me out of sleep for years. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling of my studio apartment. The paint above the window had a hairline crack that looked like a tiny lightning bolt. The air smelled faintly of detergent and the leftover garlic from my uniform I had washed the night before. Usually, the first thought that hit me was my mother. What could I do today that would finally make her proud? Would I pick up another shift? Would I send a cheerful text? Would I show up with a gift big enough to buy her kindness for a week? That morning, the first thought was different. Why did I let her hold that power for so long? I swung my feet to the floor. The cold bit through my socks. I did not pray for her approval. I did not rehearse an apology I did not owe. I brushed my teeth, pulled my hair into a tight bun, and tied my boots with the slow, deliberate care of someone preparing for a long walk. At the plant, the air was sharp with freezer chill. The conveyor belts rattled awake. Pallets thudded. The fluorescent lights made everyone look a little tired, a little gray, like we were all ghosts clocking in for the same haunting. Halfway through my shift, my phone vibrated against my thigh. I did not have to look to know it was the group chat. My throat tightened anyway. I went to the restroom, locked myself in a stall, and pulled out my phone. New messages stacked like bricks. Photos from the Mother's Day dinner. My mother smiling between Mark in his white coat and Emma in a sleek blazer. Lily holding flowers. Her eyes bright in that way mine used to be, when I still believed love could be earned. Captions popped up under the pictures. Mom deserves the best. Proud of this family. My 3 shining stars. I stared at the last line until the words felt like sand in my mouth. 3. Not 4. Not even a half-hearted mention. Not even a pity heart at the end. Then the private messages came. From Mark. Heard you were busy yesterday. Mom was a little hurt. You know she did not mean it that way. Do not make everything so dramatic. From Emma. Next year, just show up more with your career stuff and she will include you. You know how she is. No one asked if I was okay. No one said the message was cruel. The problem, apparently, was my reaction. My refusal to smile while I was erased. My hands started to shake. Not because I was weak, because something inside me was trying to claw its way out of a cage it had lived in for years. I opened the group chat again. I scrolled up until I found the original message. Mother's Day dinner. Successful kids only. I took another screenshot, even though I already had one, and saved it anyway. Not because I wanted to obsess, because I wanted proof. A receipt for the moment they made my place in the family official, optional. Then I did the first kind thing I had done for myself in a long time. I muted the group chat for 1 year. The option was there like a button that had been waiting for my finger. 1 year. No constant buzzing. No pictures of celebrations I was not invited to. No subtle jabs wrapped in laughter. No pressure to be small so everyone else could look big. After that, I opened my mother's contact. Her name sat on the screen like a weight. I held my thumb on it. The phone asked if I was sure. For once, I was. Block. Mark. Block. Emma. Block. I hovered over Lily, my baby sister. The one who still had softness in her face, still had the habit of biting her lip when she was nervous. She had grown up watching this dynamic like it was normal. Like love was something you perform for. I left her unblocked, not because I was forgiving, but because I was not ready to bury the one thread that still felt human. When my shift ended, the sky over Riverton was the color of wet cement. I walked to the parking lot with my shoulders aching, but my chest felt oddly light. Quiet, not empty. Quiet. That evening, my friend and coworker, Mia Brooks, showed up at my apartment with takeout and a look that meant she already knew something was wrong. She kicked off her shoes by the door like she lived there, dropped a paper bag on my counter, and studied my face. What happened? She asked. I did not answer right away. I pulled my notebook from the drawer and slid it toward her. 2 columns. Stay connected. Cut ties. The right side packed with words that looked like a confession. Mia read it, then looked up slowly. You already know your answer, Sarah, she said. You wrote it. My voice came out thinner than I expected. Who cuts off their own mom over a text? Mia did not flinch. It was not one text. It was your whole life in one sentence. That hit like a punch and a hug at the same time. I stared at the notebook until the paper blurred. My throat burned. What if I am the bad daughter? I asked, and the words tasted like my mother's voice. Mia leaned forward, elbows on the table. Bad daughters steal. Bad daughters lie. Bad daughters hurt people for fun. You work nights in a freezer so your family could keep a roof. If that makes you bad, then the world is upside down. I swallowed hard. The silence in the room felt new, like clean air after smoke. I stood and opened the drawer under the table, the one I almost never touched, because it held the parts of my life that made me feel trapped. A folder, worn edges, paper clip stacks, old bank statements, emails I had printed years ago because I did not trust anyone to remember what I had done. Mia watched me as I spread the papers across the table. What is all that? She asked. I tapped a document with my finger. A promissory note. My mother's signature slanted across the bottom, rushed and careless, from the year my dad died, and panic filled every room of our house. It is proof, I said, my voice steadier now. Proof I was never just background noise. Mia's eyes narrowed as she scanned the page. Sarah, she said softly, this is not nothing. No, I whispered. It is not. I picked up my pen again, and at the bottom of the right column, I wrote 3 words in all caps. I choose me. Then I pulled my phone closer, opened a blank notes page, and typed a title with a calm I did not recognize. Successful Kids Only. My finger hovered over the keyboard, and my heart beat slow and heavy, like the plant starting up after a shutdown. I was not sure yet what I was about to do with that title, but I knew one thing. The next time my mother tried to write my story, she was going to discover I had my own ink. My promotion came on a Thursday that felt aggressively ordinary. No drumroll, no confetti, just the low buzz of the plant and the smell of reheated coffee. Rachel Turner asked me to step into her office at the end of my shift. She closed the door, leaned back in her chair, and studied me the way people do when they have already decided something and are checking their instincts. You have been running circles around half this floor, she said. I want you as a line supervisor on the new frozen meals project. More pay, more responsibility. You in? A year earlier, my first thought would have been my mother. I would have imagined the look on her face when she told her friends at church that her daughter had finally moved up. I would have chased that feeling like a dog after a car. This time, the thought never came. I thought about the hours I had spent learning every choke point on the line. The way I stayed late to help a new hire who was about to quit because no one had shown him how to keep up. The nights I studied safety protocols with Mia until our eyes burned. I am in, I said. Rachel smiled. Good, you earned it. Earned it. The word followed me back into the floor like a quiet anthem. People looked at me differently now. Not with pity. Not with that polite distance reserved for someone you expect to stay small. They asked me questions. They waited for answers. They trusted me to fix things when they broke. Authority felt strange at first. Heavy. Real, but it fit. Late that night, after I showered and sat on my couch with damp hair and aching calves, my phone felt too quiet in my hand. Old habits die hard. I unlocked it and hovered over my mother's contact, even though it was blocked. Muscle memory. Years of training. Instead, I opened the Notes app. The title stared back at me. Successful Kids Only. I started typing before I could talk myself out of it. At first, it was raw and ugly. Sentences that ran too long. Anger bleeding through the lines. But as I wrote, something shifted. I stopped trying to prove anything. I started telling the truth. I described the factory without apologizing for it. The cold. The work. The dignity of keeping lights on when no one else would. I described the group chat. The exact words. Mother's Day dinner. Successful Kids Only. I wrote about watching my name disappear from my own mother's sentence. In the middle of the piece, I asked a question that had been chewing at me since the loading dock. Does your self-worth depend on the people who refuse to see it, or can you build it anyway? I did not sign my name. I did not name the city. I did not paint my mother as a villain with horns. I just told the story. I hit publish. For a moment, nothing happened. I set my phone down and went to bed with the strange feeling of having stepped off a cliff and landed somewhere solid. By morning, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Thousands of views, comments stacking faster than I could read them. I thought I was the only one. My mom did the same thing when I became a mechanic. Cutting contacts saved my life. Blue-collar work is not failure. It is survival. I sat on the edge of my bed and let the words wash over me. Validation from strangers landed differently than my mother's silence ever had. It did not ask me to shrink. It did not come with conditions. Mia found the post within hours. This is you, she texted. And it is powerful. I am proud of you. Then something unexpected happened. One of my mother's church friends, someone I still followed out of habit, shared the article with a caption that made my stomach flip. This broke my heart. Parents, please do not do this to your kids. The post started traveling in the same circles my mother moved in. Women who had watched me grow up, people who had prayed with her on Sundays. They shared it without knowing it was mine. Or maybe they did. A few days later, an unknown number called my phone. I let it ring out. The voicemail icon appeared like a bruise. When I listened, my mother's voice filled the room. Tight. Careful. Sarah, it is Mom. I heard a story going around online. People keep sending it to me, saying it sounds familiar. I hope you are not involved in anything that makes our family look bad. We need to talk. Not, are you okay? Not, I am sorry. Just concern about how she looked. I saved the voicemail. Receipt number 2. At work, Rachel pulled me aside near the end of the week. Random question, she said, lowering her voice. I read a post about someone whose mom excluded them from a Mother's Day dinner. The author sounded a lot like you. Heat crept up my neck. Maybe, I said. Rachel smiled. If it was you, you should know it mattered. Anyone who can lead on the line and write like that is going places. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. That night, I printed the blog post. I slid it into a folder with the screenshots, the voicemail, the promissory note. I labeled the tab in thick black marker. Proof I am not crazy. The storytelling event came next. Mia waved the flyer in my face during lunch like a dare. Theme: when family crosses the line. I said no. Then I said no again. Then I found myself standing under warm lights, my hands shaking as I gripped the microphone. I started with a sentence I knew would land. My mom called me embarrassing because I chose factory work. The room went still. Faces changed. I told them about the barbecue, the dodged explanations, the group chat. I read the exact words, watching people flinch at successful kids only. Halfway through, I asked the question that had gutted me. Have you ever realized you are only loved on your family's terms? Heads nodded. Someone wiped their eyes. When I finished, the applause felt less like noise and more like air filling my lungs after years underwater. On the bus home, my phone buzzed again. A bigger page had shared my story with a caption that made my hands tremble. The successful kids, only mom is why so many of us are in therapy. Buried in the comments, I saw a name that made my heart stutter. Lily Hayes. Sometimes the successful kids are just the ones who learned how to perform. The others are just trying to survive. Pride and fear tangled in my chest. Later that night, Lily texted me directly. She saw it. Mom saw it too. She is not handling it well. People at church are talking. Then came the line I had been bracing for, the one that turned my blood cold. She says she needs to talk to you. It is about money. The hospital bills are piling up, and the roof is leaking. I stared at the message, the room suddenly too quiet. The past was knocking again, and this time, it was not asking for forgiveness. For a few seconds after Lily's message, I did nothing. The phone rested in my palm like it had weight. Money, hospital bills, a leaking roof. The same words that had dragged me back into line so many times before. Like a hook behind my ribs. The old version of me woke up fast. The one trained to fix things before anyone asked. The one who stayed behind when my siblings left. Who picked up overtime because guilt had a voice, and it sounded like family. I pictured my mother sitting alone in the living room of the house I grew up in. Dim lamp, the hum of the refrigerator, cracks in the ceiling. I used to trace with my eyes as a kid when I could not sleep. For a moment, my chest tightened so hard it felt physical. Guilt is sneaky like that. It does not care how many times you have been hurt. It only knows which buttons to press. I took a slow breath and typed back. Can we talk later? I need to think. The cursor blinked. Lily replied almost immediately. Okay, I get it. I just wanted you to know. I set the phone down and paced my apartment until the floor creaked under my steps. Every instinct screamed the same command it always had. Step up. Fix it. Be the good daughter. I grabbed my jacket and drove to Mia's place without calling first. She opened the door in socks and a sweatshirt, took one look at my face, and stepped aside without a word. We sat at her kitchen table with mugs of tea that went cold between us. I told her everything. The voicemail, the blog, the hospital bills, the roof. When I finished, I stared at my hands like they might tell me what to do. Mia did not rush to fill the silence. She waited until my breathing slowed. Let me ask you something, she said. If none of this had gone public, if no one was whispering at church, do you think she would be calling you right now? The answer came faster than I wanted it to. No, Mia nodded. Then this is not about need. It is about access. That word landed hard. Access. I drove home with it echoing in my head. At my apartment, I opened the folder on my desk. The one labeled Proof I Am Not Crazy. I spread everything out again. Screenshots. Bank transfers. The promissory note with my mother's signature, dated the year my dad died. I remembered the day she signed it. Her hand shaking, her voice small. She had called it a formality. Family paperwork. I had insisted anyway, because even then, I knew how easily sacrifice could be erased. I called the lawyer I had spoken to weeks earlier. He listened quietly as I laid out the situation. When I finished, he did not tell me what to do. He told me what the law would do if I stepped back. You are not obligated to rescue, he said. If you want to help, you can. If you do not, that is not abandonment. That is a boundary, especially given the documentation. Boundary. I hung up and sat in the quiet until the sun slid down the wall. When my phone buzzed again, it was Lily. She wants your number, she wrote. She keeps saying she needs to explain herself. I typed, erased, typed again. What do you think I should do? I asked. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, Lily replied. I think you have already done more than anyone knows. You stayed when Dad died. You paid for things you could not afford. Mom never counted any of that when she wrote that Mother's Day text. I do not think you owe her a rescue now. She is going to call you cruel for that, but I do not think it is cruel. I think it is consequences. Reading the word consequences in my baby sister's voice felt like a door clicking shut in my chest that had been stuck open for years. Not slammed, just closed, firmly. I told Lily she could pass along a message. Not my number, a message. Tell her I hope she takes care of her health, I said. Tell her I hope she gets the support she needs. And tell her I am not her backup plan. A pause. She is going to say you took everything from her, Lily warned. I shook my head, even though she could not see it. She still has 3 kids who show up for her. She has her friends, her church. I did not take everything from her. I just stopped letting her take everything from me. A few weeks later, a small package showed up at my door. No return address. The handwriting on the label pulled something loose in my chest. Permission slips, sticky notes on the fridge. The way my name used to look when she wrote it. Inside was a little jewelry box with my initials, scratched and faded from childhood, and a letter folded too many times. I read it standing at the counter. She never wrote the words, I am sorry. Instead, she wrote about misunderstandings, about how much she had tried, about how deeply I had hurt her by taking private family issues public, about people at church looking at her differently now. Near the end, she wrote the line that sat on the page like a dare. After everything I did for you, the least you could do is help me in my time of need. There was a time when that sentence would have cracked me open, when I would have grabbed a pen, offered money I barely had, begged her to see my side. This time, I put the letter back in the box and closed the lid. I opened my notebook to a clean page and wrote a new heading. Here is what is real. I listed facts, not feelings. I protected her identity more than she had ever protected my dignity. I did not cause her health problems. I did not make people whisper. I did not erase myself from her story. She did that. I folded the letter and placed it back in the box. I did not throw it away. I did not let it steer me. The only thing I sent was one short text, passed through Lily, word for word. I hope you take care of your health and find the support you need. I am not able to step back into this role. I wish you peace. No explanations. No reopening old wounds so she could poke them. Just a boundary stated calmly, like the weather. A few days later, Lily texted. She cried. Then she called you ungrateful. Then she told her friends you abandoned her. But she stopped asking for your number. I sat on my couch and let the quiet settle. It did not feel like a victory lap. It felt heavy, sad, and strangely calm. I looked down at my steel-toe boots by the door and wondered if what I felt was grief or freedom. A strange thing happened after I sent that message. Nothing exploded. There was no dramatic confrontation, no screaming phone call, no final speech where everyone suddenly understood me. Life simply kept moving, and for the first time, it moved without dragging me behind it. The quiet felt different now. Not hollow, intentional. I did not send money. I did not call. I did not explain myself a second time in new words, hoping they would land better. I let Lily be the only bridge, and even that bridge had clear limits. Updates about health, if she wanted to share. No messages disguised as emergencies. No guilt wrapped in concern. I kept the box with the letter in the back of my closet. Not as a weapon, not as a reminder to stay angry, just as proof that I had not imagined the shape of my childhood. Some histories do not need to be burned. They just need to stop directing traffic. Work filled my days in a way that felt earned. I traveled between plants now, helping teams untangle problems and train new supervisors. My calendar no longer revolved around family holidays. My suitcase stayed half-packed by the door. My phone contacts list got shorter, but my world got bigger. I kept writing. What started as one anonymous post turned into a place people returned to. I wrote about boundaries and the weird guilt that comes with saying no to your own parents. I wrote about blue-collar pride and the dignity of knowing your work mattered, even if it never looked impressive on paper. Sometimes I wrote about small moments my mother would have dismissed. That meant everything to me. Like the day a new hire told me I was the first boss he ever had who did not talk down to him. That comment meant more than any forced congratulations from my old life ever could. My chosen family grew quietly. Mia, a few coworkers who stayed late to talk instead of rushing home. People from that storytelling night who hugged me like they had known me for years. We showed up for each other without keeping score. No one needed me to bleed to prove my loyalty. Lily and I texted now and then. Light things. Memes. Updates about class. Sometimes, on harder days, one of us would write, "You are not crazy. This really happened." That was enough. I heard about my mother through other people, that she complained about being judged, that she changed churches for a while, then went back, that she never quite learned how to say, "I hurt my daughter, and I am trying to make it right." I felt a dull sadness about that, but it no longer felt like my job to fix it. There is a particular kind of grief that comes with choosing your own peace over a relationship you spent your whole life trying to earn. People like to wrap it up neatly and say it gets easy. It does not. Some nights, I still miss the idea of a mother more than the person herself. Some memories still sting, but missing something does not mean you should return to what broke you. One evening, I stood on my tiny balcony and looked toward the glow of the factory lights in the distance. I remembered sitting behind that loading dock, reading a message that said successful kids only, and realizing I was not invited. That same place had become where I learned something else. My success did not need her stamp of approval. I still wear steel toe boots. I still clock in. I still get grease under my nails some days. But I no longer hear her voice in my head every time I swipe my badge. I hear my own. And sometimes the voices of people who say thank you for telling the truth. So let me ask you this. If a parent asked you to step back into a role that once crushed you and called it forgiveness, would you give them access again? Or would you choose your freedom, trust that boundaries are not cruelty, and finally put yourself first? Tell me, what would you choose?